My name is Ruadhan Jones, and in this video essay I will compare and contrast the differing approaches to interviewing taken by Errol Morris in The Thin Blue Line and the Maysles brothers in Grey Gardens. I will also explore the effects their approaches have on the films and the possible motivations for their choices of approach. In order to show this, I will focus on whether the interviews were staged or improvised, the level of post-production intervention, and finally, the presence or absence of the director's voice. The interviews in The Thin Blue Line are staged. In all of them, Morris uses the same lens, the same distance from the camera, the same eye level, and often what people are wearing is specifically chosen. For example, Randall Adams, whose innocence is the subject of the film, wears a white shirt which is brightly lit. This plays on the association between white and innocence. This also exemplifies Morris' use of filmic lighting in the interviews. Finally, almost all the characters are placed so that they stare directly into the camera, as though directly at us. Whereas the other elements of staging suggest artificiality, this element has the effect of lending a transparency to their words and creating a direct link between them and the audience. The interviews in Grey Gardens are not staged but improvised, using natural light and often being directed as much by the characters as by the filmmakers. This is exemplified perfectly in this scene. Edie rushes out the door while the Maysles are filming outside on the patio and proceeds to dance for them. She moves closer and further from the camera, effectively creating her own close-ups and medium shots. Unlike The Thin Blue Line, the character controls her own representation, which the Maysles capture and express. A further difference between the two films is the use of a handheld camera in Grey Gardens, which leads to shaky and sometimes blurred footage. The Maysles' approach suggests to us that they are reacting to and capturing reality as it is. The Maysles choose this naturalistic approach in order to suggest that they reveal the truth, unmediated and objective. In The Thin Blue Line, however, Morris's approach highlights that the reality the filmmaker presents is mediated and subjective. The contradiction between the staging of the interviews and the seemingly truthful, talking cure mode of address highlights the way the truth can be manipulated and is subject to personal visions, ideas, and prejudices. The idea of mediation is all the more evident in the post-production intervention in the films. Morris often disrupts the visuals of the interviews by interposing images of newspaper clippings, photographs, etc., while the soundtrack continues. This is highlighted in this scene, where the combination of photos of the electric chair and the voiceover have the effect of building tension and drama.
You get numb. It's like a bad dream. You want to wake up, but you can't do it.
This scene also exemplifies how Morris rarely uses any ambient sound or background noise, allowing us to focus on the social actor's voice.
Worry about what happens when a man is electrocuted. His eyeballs pop out. His fingernails pop out.
Also, he uses a score as it would be used in a fiction film, for dramatic effect and underscore moments of tension, suspense, etc., as in this moment. Morris's approach to post-production intervention not only increases the dramatic effect, it also highlights the idea of documentary as a construction and demonstrates how the truth can be manipulated. In Grey Gardens, the interviews are not subject to as much post-production intervention, although the editing is very important. This is best exemplified in this scene. Here, the sound is entirely diegetic, including the sound of footsteps, cats meowing, and the Beals' voices.
Mr. Beale, the jig was up.
You remember this?
May I see that, please?
Villain of the piece. To my best friend and most delightful comrade, to my only sweetheart and wonderful wife, I tender this likeness of her husband.
Though the scene is edited in a manner similar to The Thin Blue Line, to include shots of paintings, photographs, etc., the effect the edits have is different. Hongisto argues that the alternation between close-ups and photographs reveals an inner dimension to the characters. The post-production intervention, therefore, has the effect of adding to the realism, exploring the characters beneath the surface. Once again, the motivations of the directors are diametrically opposed. The Maysles seek to add another layer to their rhetoric of authenticity, whereas Morris continues his rhetoric of inauthenticity. Finally, the documentaries take two different approaches with regard to the presence or absence of the director's voice. The Maisels' presences in their film are overt. As this scene highlights, not only are their voices present, they interact with the two Eddies, talk to them, share their food and ask them questions.
Who was the man that took care of you for 25 years?
Their interactions create the impression of a natural interplay, as though their presences enhance our understanding of the characters and add to the naturalism of the piece.
Dare say my mother was ever taken care of by any man but my father, and I'll push you under the goddamn bed.
It is this aim that motivates their approach. They feel they can reveal more about the characters and increase the realism of the piece by being present. To capture reality as it happens is their ultimate aim. It motivates all their choices.
Would you say that Adams is a pretty unlucky fellow?
Unlike the Maisels, Morris never appears on screen, and the only scene in which we hear his voice is the final interview. This interview draws attention to the fact that Morris's presence is otherwise covert in the rest of the film.
You know, kid scares me. Kid scares me. To think that he could actually be out there walking the streets, you know, and Dallas County let him go.
His absence has the effect of increasing the seeming veracity of the interviewee's statements. It is as if they are confessing directly to us.
Peace officer, he had breaking and enterings, aggravated assaults, God knows what all this kid had. And Dallas County gives him complete immunity for his testimony, just lets him walk.
In choosing to remain virtually invisible during the documentary, Morris seeks an effect very different from the Maisels. His approach draws attention to the documentary as a construction. By highlighting this, he achieves his ultimate aim, one completely contrary to the Maisels, which is to remind us of the subjectivity of truth and the need to interrogate it. The inclusion of Morris's voice in the final interview reminds the audience of his presence throughout the film, subtly controlling the reality we witness through post-production intervention and the careful staging of interviews. Though the social actors appear to speak the truth directly to us, it is all mediated by Morris, and it is, in fact, his perspective on the truth which we receive. To sum up, I have examined the approaches to interviewing in both The Thin Blue Line and Grey Gardens. In Grey Gardens, the interviews are improvised, the post-production intervention is restricted to editing, and the directors are overtly present in the shooting of the film. This gives a sense of naturalism, that we are witnessing reality as it happens. This is the Maisels' ultimate aim. Errol Morris's aim is very different. His approach is motivated by a wish to highlight how truth is subjective and open to manipulation. The staged interviews, the post-production intervention, and the absence of the director draw the viewer's attention to documentary as a construct while highlighting its claim to objectivity and truthfulness.